put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. It's an open mic night for photographers. Get ready for 60 minutes of your photography questions in real time with answers from your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, how's everybody doing? Thank you for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. So hey, it's Wednesday. Here we are. It's time to start talking photography. We're going to be here for the next 90 minutes, even though it says 60 minutes. You know, I never get done in 90 minutes. Oh, right out of the box, James Parrish, that's a great question. Am I going to be adding a sponsor button to the live feed? I will be, as soon as it's available. It is not available on all YouTube channels yet. I am very familiar with it, and I will be doing that. In fact, I would honestly like to be able to make that the primary interaction, because there's also some other community features that they're going to put behind it. So more to come on that. But anyway, gang, seriously, thank you for checking in. Like, we got a ton of people here tonight. Kevin's here, James is here, Jean Edwards here, another James, Andrew, Lillian, Jack is here from France, Jean is here, Mike, Sven's here. Sven's got a new identity tonight, okay, all the way from Norway. Albie, Mark Lipton. Seriously, gang, thank you. Been a crazy week, a lot of stuff going on. I know I've talked about this before, but I will mention it again. Just on the off chance that you are going to be anywhere near Chicagoland this weekend, remember, I am going to be speaking at the Out of Chicago summer event that is happening this weekend. It starts Friday, runs through Sunday. In fact, let me take this off the screen and we'll switch over here and I will show you their website really quick, just so that you can get a better sense of what I'm talking about. So this Out of Chicago event, yeah, I'm not going to brag or anything, but man, there's some really cool names. So like, I'm pretty honored to be talking at this event. Scott Kelby, Tony Sweet, Aaron Nace, the amazing Scott Bourne is there, Nick Page, Eric Paré. What you got to understand, guys, is what's cool about this event is there are all different kinds of photographers. There's even this dude called Manny Ortiz that's going to be there. Like, what's up with that? In fact, for those of you that follow us on YouTube, this Saturday, the 23rd, I'm going to be doing a photo walk in downtown Chicago with Manny. And if you saw Manny's last video where he photographed the girl with a nice big blonde afro on the basketball court, she is going to be our model on Saturday. A lot of really, really amazing photographers. So in the chat window, I posted both the link as well as a $50 discount that you should use. If there's any chance that you can make it, it would be really cool to meet you, hang out. It's pretty much 3 days of nonstop 24/7 photography. There are events that start at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and hey, it's photographers. So you know there'll be people out and about well before 8 o'clock in the morning. And then there's events that run all night. Friday night, Mr. Scott Kelby is going to be doing the keynote address. I'll be doing a talk Saturday morning on fashion portraiture, working with a model and the Interfit Honey Badgers. Saturday afternoon, my photo walk with Manny Ortiz. Sunday morning, a talk all about social media for photographers. Sunday afternoon, I'm doing another photo walk by myself with two beautiful models. And then later in the afternoon on Sunday is our Sunday shootout. And I will have a studio set up where you folks can come and shoot the model that I have set up and the really cool fashion portraits that I set up. So you'll be able to use my lighting, my model, my setup, and you'll be able to shoot and add some stuff to your collection. So anyway, if you're in the area, would love to meet you. Make sure you come by and say hi. All right. So let's see here. I got a couple other things. So I promised you guys that I was going to try and start sharing images kind of on a weekly basis that I've been, working on, etc. So if you follow me on Instagram, which hopefully you do, you should, you'll get to see kind of previews of this stuff during the week. But the cool part of it is here during TogChat, I can show you the full-size videos. So the recent shoot that I did was, let me just get up on the screen here. This shot right here, it's a beauty shot of a young, beautiful teenage model. Absolutely gorgeous face, eyes to die for. I've been wanting to photograph this young lady for quite a while, actually. I don't work with a lot of teenagers. It's not so much because of the teenagers, it's because of the moms. names, actually. But this girl is great. Mom is great. Spent a day with them in the studio. The setup for this shot, for those of you that are interested, it's a 5 light, 1 reflector setup. And this is kind of a very classic beauty shot, like advertising, kind of high-end commercial beauty shot look. We've got a beauty dish above and in front of her, which are rim lights aimed back towards the subject, and they create a reflector underneath. It's just a white Walmart reflector. In my studio, we've got 2 lights, one on either side of the white background, aimed at the background. And they're dialed up so that they're exposing about a stop and a half brighter than the subject. So I want that background pure white. And then 2 lights in the back, which are rim lights aimed back towards the subject. And they create that little highlight that you see along each side of her face. Also, they create that little highlight that you see along her jawline as it comes in from the neck. So it makes a really beautiful, really subtle kind of light. And then in post-production, I do add a little bit more glow, that kind of feel that the light is just kind of wrapping around from behind her. That's part the way it's shot. That's part real simple Photoshop trick, and I'll describe it to you. I'm not going to open up Photoshop and show you, but I'll describe it. It's really, really easy. You basically select your background. I use curves, but you could do it with brightness and contrast, levels, curves, and basically what I do then is I create an adjustment layer. I just grab the middle of the curve slider and drag it up to the top, and at which point, when you look at the picture, nothing has happened on your screen. But then what you do is you go to Filters, Blur, Gaussian blur, and you blur that adjustment layer by about 40 to 50 pixels, and the glow just pops out, and it's literally the most beautiful thing that you've ever seen. Super simple. In fact, you'll love it. Try it out. Now, the cool part is I tell you guys all the time about how I like to work my right? So I did that I'm really excited about. Bill, haven't seen you in a long time, man. Glad to see you're here. So I always look for, additional shots that I can get at any time. So obviously going back to this shot, I've got the young girl's hair pulled back, and it's just face, all kind of high-end lighting shot in color. So what I did then is after I had this shot and I was happy with the outcome of it, I had my makeup artist take her hair out of the ponytail that was in the back, and we kind of shushed it out. And that word shushed it for hair, that's like a highly technical term. So make sure you guys understand that. When you want your makeup artist to just, kind of fluff it up, that's like, just shush it out, okay? Highly technical, I swear. They all know what that means. So then I decided I would use same makeup, same hair, same basic lighting setup. And I switched to black and white. I brought out the fan. So the only 2 real changes that I made is I turned off the background lights. I turned off the rim lights. And so what I'm about to show you is a 1 light shot, same girl, taken about 5 minutes after the last picture that you saw, just switching to black and white, using the inverse square law to let that white background go to a dark gray, turning off the rims, turning off the background light. So those are 2 shots from the same shoot. The second one is kind of a super, super easy transition. I show you that, and I basically make the point of trying to encourage you when you're shooting, always look for more ways to get more shots out of what you're doing. There's an old phrase, and I know for you cat lovers, you'll hate this phrase, but it's a phrase. It's just a figure of speech, right? The old phrase is, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Well, there's more than one way to do a picture, right? So the whole idea is, if you think about it, it's kind of arrogant, actually, as a photographer, as a creative. I don't care how good your idea is. You set up the idea, you do the shot, boom, it's done. Perfect, it's great, let's go. We can go home, have lunch, whatever. I'm not that good. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not that good. I never like to assume, because you know what happens when we assume, right? I never like to assume that my first idea was the best idea, that it was perfect, that it was great. No matter how excited I am about the picture, I always work with a philosophy that there's more. There's more to be found. There's more to be had. I've just got to experiment, and I've got to play with it. and go for it. So that's an example of kind of how I do that, where I did it. I'm going to try again. Like I said, I want to try and get in the habit of showing you guys something every week, just to give you a little bit of a background, let you see some of the images nice and big, full size. So I will continue that habit. Also, last piece of business, and we're going to dig into questions because I got some really, really good questions here tonight, gang. In case you guys didn't see it today, new video went live. Whoop, let me go that way. Now you can see me. New video went live today. It is my 6-month report card on my Olympus system. So, before we get any further, let's make it really clear here. If you are a Nikon, Canon, or Sony user and you love your gear and you're not interested in changing and all that kind of stuff, congratulations. No harm, no foul. Just do me a favor and don't watch the video and complain about it then. Don't waste your time. I'm saving you the time. It's not a tutorial. I'm not going to teach any cool photography techniques in this video. It's definitely not a video that is meant to debate people. I'm not saying that Olympus is the best camera in the world. I'm not saying that, anybody else sucks. I'm just saying, hey, I've been using Olympus for 6 months. This is what I'm finding for me. This is what I'm finding for the way that I work. And I do think there's some information in there that, most people could actually take away and learn a couple things from, because I always try to do that no matter what I'm talking about. But it's basically my report card. This has been my experience so far, sharing that with you guys. Okay? All right, so let me get that off the screen. Let's dive into some questions here. So I had a whole bunch here that came in kind of early, which was always fun. But let me get into these. So this first one, I'm going to go ahead and take this just because I know this is going to freak some people out, right? So especially if you have, like, in the last year, if you have spent a lot of money on gear, maybe bought a new gear, maybe you bought that Sony a7 III or the Sony a9 or the Nikon D850 and spent all that money, you might want to go take a break, make some popcorn, come back after this part of the conversation. Or if that's not that easy, just turn the sound down, or, you could just put your fingers in your ears and go la 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 the whole time and not really listen. Okay? So here's the question. It comes from Henry. He says, I believe, Patrick Ballard. So Patrick, you need to watch the video. There is an FTC disclosure in the video, but let me tell you what it is. I do not get paid by Olympus. I did buy my cameras, paid cash for them. Well, credit cards. They're kind of soft still. They haven't quite come back to shape yet because they melted in the process. But, I bought my cameras, okay? All me. Done. That being said, after I purchased my Olympus cameras, Olympus USA, in my opinion, very wisely, they reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in presenting for us, teaching people about your fashion photography techniques, your portraits and that kind of stuff, and sharing with them the reasons why you made the switch? Well, duh. I said yes. Why wouldn't I? It'd be pretty stupid. So I did present for them. I have presented for them several times. I am presenting them for this weekend in Chicago. They are sponsoring my trip to Chicago. But no, I do not have a financial affiliation in the sense of they pay me and I'm obligated to say things. Every word that you have ever heard me speak, utter, mumble, groan, whatever about Olympus, it's mine. All the opinions, all the words. I make no secrets about that. I make no apologies to that for anyone. I know that there are some YouTubers out there that think, oh, that's horrible and you're being a shill. All I would point out to you that if you think I'm a shill is watch some of the people that are doing the Sony videos and then you decide who's really shilling for their camera brand, right? I give you both sides of the story. It's my perspective on what I'm doing, and you've never heard me say that, my brand is the best brand for everybody. That's not going to happen, okay? All right, so anyway, back to Henry's question. For those of you that still have your ears closed, sorry, I got off track. Here it comes. You ready? Henry says, I believe that mirrorless will be the future. As soon as companies roll out high-end cameras, mirrorless cameras, it seems that DSLRs will be obsolete. We know that you switched from DSLR to mirrorless, but can you tell us, what do you think about this idea? Maybe share some experiences about the differences. Basically, do I agree that, mirrorless is going to be the future? So, you ready for this? I tell this story a lot. So if you've ever heard me speak in person, you may have heard this story. And I do this just because, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of mean, but I love seeing people's faces when I tell this story. The downside is I don't get to see your faces, but I am sure I will be able to hear some of the groans through the YouTube. All right, so you ready? Yes, hands down, the simple answer is mirrorless is absolutely the future. There is no real benefit to having a mirror. In fact, as I mentioned in my 6-month report card with Olympus, the mirror is simply one more thing to break in your camera. So yeah, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. And even the CEO of Canon, who has done public interviews about it, everybody pretty much acknowledges mirrorless, it's the future. It just makes sense. Up until recently, Patrick, you're right, mirrorless is the now and not the future. I would agree with you, okay? But since, in all fairness, since Nikon and Canon are not there yet, we'll go ahead and we'll still refer to it as the future because, Nikon and Canon are still two huge brands. They're not dead yet, guys, right? So let's be fair. We'll call it the future for sake of conversation. And we'll call it the future in the sense that I do believe we will see a point, maybe in the next 10 years, maybe in the next 15. It's not going to be like in the next 2 or 3, but I do believe we will see a point where brands like Canon, brands like Nikon, they're going to be down to, maybe one DSLR, if that at all, because it's just not going to make sense. And I do believe that once Canon and Nikon come out with their mirrorless cameras, and once they work the kinks out in their system, because let's face it, this is going to be their first entree into that arena, so there's probably going to need to be a little bit of evolution that happens to get a really good thing going. I think once everybody's on the same page with pro level mirrorless systems, yeah, you're going to see DSLRs go away. But here's the thing, gang. So here's the part where I like to kind of mess with folks. Now, I'm not going to get into an argument with anybody. So I will gladly have further discussions on this later, but literally this could take up the whole night and I don't want to do that. So let me throw this thought out there for you guys to think about. Ruminate on this. I would suggest that not only is I still have the mirrorless, the Olympus splash. Now it's going to go away there, John Edward. Don't worry. Okay. Oh, no, I do still have it there. Son of a gun. Look at that. I thought I clicked it and it didn't go away. There we go. How's that? Sorry. John Edward, thank you. So now let me just make sure that my goodness, now we're back again. Wow. Interesting. Okay. So there we go. Now we got it. Sorry, guys. All right. So here's the thing that I would suggest that you all consider. It is my belief. I have no inside information. So let's be clear, right? This is just Joe thinking out of the box. It is my belief that 10 or 15 years from now, and I hope to still be around taking pictures then, I really do, but it is my belief that we are going to reach a point in the not too distant future where we will be working with cameras that are primarily video cameras, secondarily still cameras. Now, hear me out for a second. So you know how if you go into like a Best Buy or wherever, anywhere, and you buy like a camcorder, right? Just, a good old-fashioned camcorder. They still make those things, all right? Every camcorder in the market shoots video, but you can press a button and take a still picture. You buy a GoPro that shoots video, but you can press a button, take a still picture, okay? So let's look at a little history. From the beginning of the George Eastman Kodak Brownie camera to today, what have we done in the photography industry? And we could go broader and we could look at the history of human beings in the world. What do we do with technology? We use technology to make things easier, simpler, faster, better, all that stuff, right? That's what we do. That's what humans do. So I would argue that we're going to flip everything upside down. And I'm not saying that the still picture is going to go away. So let's be clear. Do not misquote me. Joe is not saying still photography is dead. Oh my God, no. Ever. Okay? Because you will always have a situation, just because of the way our brains work, because of cognitive science, right? You're always going to have a scenario where we will learn more oftentimes from a still picture than we can from a video picture, because watching video, our brains are seeing things real time and there's many more distractions and our brains miss a lot of details. That's science. But I would suggest that we're going to reach a point where we will shoot video clips, not stills. So let's use this as a hypothetical scenario, okay? Basically, you'll press the button, your camera takes a 4-second clip. So if we use today's standards, all right, at 60 frames per second times 4 seconds, that's now 240 frames. Now, most of you would be like, I don't want to look through 240 frames to find the best image. And you're right. But we have technology that already exists in cameras. Sony, Panasonic, lots of companies have eye tracking technology. They have technology that will only allow you to press the shutter if the subject's eyes are open, or that will only allow you to press the shutter if the subject is smiling. But that is in cameras. Why not take that piece of software? Because that's software technology. Why not take that piece of software and put it in a program like Lightroom or Bridge? So basically, you would take your 240 frames from your 4-second clip, and then you would download that into Lightroom or Bridge. And keep in mind, computers are going to keep getting faster, etc. So downloading, 240 high-resolution frames is not going to be a big deal at all, right? We download those frames, and then basically there'll be a little set of checkboxes in the software where you'll say, okay, this is a people picture, one person or a group. And then you're going to tell it, I want the people to be happy. I want the people to be serious. You're going to hit the click boxes. And you're going to tell it, is it okay if the people are squinting or smiling, whatever it is, you're going to hit all the check boxes. And then the software using the AI, artificial intelligence, which even Facebook today released artificial intelligence that can open a person's eyes if their eyes are closed. So the artificial intelligence of the software is going to go through those 240 frames, and it's going to come back and it's going to find you the 3 best frames with the 3 best smiles. And it's going to do it poof like that. And then you're going to say, ooh, I like the middle one. Done. What's the benefit of that? The benefit of that, by pressing the button and letting it rip off 4 seconds, it's kind of advanced spray and pray. We all talk about how spray and pray is bad, but it's way more than what spray and pray can do today. So it's essentially ensuring that you never miss a picture. That's actually pretty amazing. Even me as a professional, even me who spent years practicing how to shoot sports and keep things in focus with manual focus and all this stuff, I think that's awesome. How cool would that be? But everything I just suggested to you, we already have that technology. All of the elements of that technology already exist in the world, in products that we have. Where they don't exist yet is in software. No one has taken that programming and put it into one piece of software. So Adobe, whomever, maybe it'll be Luminar with MacFun with Skylum, okay? Let's try that again. Skylum with Luminar, okay? Maybe it'll be them. Maybe it'll be On1. Who knows? But somebody's eventually going to take all that technology, that artificial intelligence, and being able to recognize elements in a scene. And trust me, it's going to, think about it, and all kinds of elements. You could even basically program the software to come back and show you the images that have the best composition. You could come back and show you the best elements, in terms of color schemes and color ranges, like all that kind of stuff. So the cool part of it is we have the technology. It's really, really close. So it makes sense that we will start shooting video first. The still image will be the secondary takeaway from it. That's what I think, Henry. So it gives you guys something to think about, okay? I just hope I'm around long enough to see if I'm wrong, because I really believe I'm right. I believe that's what's going to happen. It just kind of makes sense, but time will tell, right? All right, another question I have here. Brad Pryor. This is one of those tough ones. So Brad, I'm hoping that maybe you're here, because that way I can give you a little bit more information, because I've got a question for you. So his question is, I've been asked to do a friend's wedding. The reception is in a venue that is about 40 foot by 80 foot. So that's actually not massive, okay, but that's a decent size. He has a Nikon D750 with 2 Nikon speedlights. And the question is, would that be enough to photograph the event, and would he need modifiers to help? So unfortunately, Henry, the honest answer to you, or the best answer, Brad, excuse me, the best answer that I can give you to that question is it depends, maybe. If you're looking to use those, I would propose, and if you're here, let me know you're here so that I can ask you a couple more questions about what you're doing. But I would suggest that if you are using those 2 speedlights to just fill in and enhance the ambient light that is already in that venue, then those two speed lights are going to be awesome. In fact, I would encourage you, maybe what you consider doing is using one speed light on camera with a modifier like a mag bounce, as an example, by MagMod. And then use the second one as, basically a highlight or a fill light that you are, that you're going to be, kind of enhancing that ambient light. But it really depends, Brad, on what kind of a style that you want with the light and how you want that light to feel. So I hope that makes sense. Brad, I would say to you, if you're not here and you come back and you watch this to see if I answered your question, if you're not a member of my Facebook group, make sure you join my Facebook group, and then I can gladly, try and answer the question for you in there. In fact, I will put the link to my Facebook group here in the chat window for you guys. There you go. So by all means, try and follow up with me, and I will just, see if I can't give you some more information. Okay. So, Jean Edward had a question here. Let's see, he's doing portraits. He's got Yangwano 560 version 4 strobes. During his portrait sessions, he keeps running into annoyances with the key light flash. At half power or even full power, the battery runs out too quickly, or it misfires, or he runs into, even more annoyingly, long recharge times. And basically, this happens regardless of which one of the strobes he's using, which is correct. It should happen regardless. He's currently considering getting one honey badger and a manual trigger to use as a key light, and then progressively replace his system. His question is the Yangwanos, or if the Yangwanos can fire if they are set up to wait for any flash, in other words, optical firing. Do I think he'll run into problems with this? He currently triggers them with a radio remote. Have I had any experience mixing strobes and studio flashes? Will he be fine? So, Jean Edward, there's one thing that I don't know about those Yangwanos. So answer this question for me, because I know you're here. Do the Yangwanos have an optical trigger built in? In other words, they have an optical trigger that will watch for a flash and, fire when that goes off. While you're giving me that answer, I will tell you this. As far as mixing studio strobes and speedlights, sure, that's not a problem. A flash is a flash. Now, there are certain things that you need to pay attention to and be aware of when you do that, right? So, the problem that you're running into is just that speedlights are tough on batteries. Period. Okay. So if you're not already using, rechargeable batteries, I would encourage you start using rechargeables. Okay, cool. I see Andy and John Edward saying yes, they do. So yeah, John Edward, as long as they've got optical triggers, man, you're good to go in terms of firing. That's not going to be a problem at all. Now, to be fair, let's just make sure we're clarifying a point. If you're going to put your Yangwano like 300 yards away from the honey badger, that could be a problem, right? Or if you're going to put your Yangwano like around the corner, down the hallway from the honey badger where it can't really see the honey badger, that could be a problem, right? Because obviously with the radio trigger, you could have your, other flash in another room around the corner. It could be blind to the first light, but it can pick up the radio signals. So they do need to be able to see, a certain amount of the light. But the good part is with those optical triggers, it's not that it has to have a direct line of sight. So it's not like the Nikon, the way the Nikon CLS system used to work, where it was like an infrared trigger. So they had to be able to see each other. So it's not that extreme. So, but anyway, it goes, your Yangwanos are going to, they're going to need batteries, and you're going to have to replace those batteries. So I think part of what you're potentially running into here, Jean Edward, especially since I know you're doing a lot of portraits and you're shooting people, understand that speedlights are not designed to recycle as fast as studio strobes to begin with. That's one of the reasons why, and you guys know I love the Interfit Honey Badgers, but that's also one of the reasons why the Godox, like the 8200 and the Explorer 600, are so popular. The 8200s, they look like speedlights. They're about the same size as speedlights, but they work like a studio flash. That's why they came up with this name Pocket Flash, because it's kind of in between. It's a hybrid, right? But those strobes, they recycle every bit as fast as my studio strobes do, which is great in that sense. So yeah, I would say to you, and I also know, Jean Edward, you do a lot of location work. So let me tell you this, and I'm trying to think how I can do this. So, two things about the honey badgers. All right. So number one, keep in mind that if you're going to take it out on location, you need power for it, AC power, right? Or you can use a lithium power pack, kind of like Paul C. Buff's, oh gosh, what's the name? Vagabond Mini. I totally lost the name there for a second. So what I can tell you is that Interfit is coming out with a portable lithium battery later this summer, and it is going to be less expensive than the Buff, and it's got more features than the Buff. I can tell you that for a fact. But I will also tell you, and I have to be very careful I say this because I'm going to get in trouble for saying this anyway. If you want to be able to use those honey badgers on location and you don't want to have to worry about AC, you might just want to wait until Photokina before you buy your honey badger. That's all I can tell you. Okay? I'm already in trouble for saying that. So, yeah, but if the location stuff's not an issue, then yeah, honey badgers, awesome. They rock. They're gonna rock. They're great. Okay, but definitely rechargeable batteries on the Young Widows. And I would tell you, and I know I'm gonna upset a lot of you. In fact, I see D-Mac even is saying, he likes the Young Widows 685s. I'm just not a fan of the Young Widows. I'm not. Price is awesome, right? You can't beat the price of the Young Widows. And don't get me wrong, it's not like, before you guys get mad at me, I'm not saying that they're junk or anything like that. No. Okay, please. All right. I'm just saying that I'm just not a fan of it. Especially, I'll be honest with you, what I'm really not a fan of is their menu system more than anything else. But I do think that, by the time you get into the higher end Yangwanos, there are some other options out there which do cost a little bit more money, but they come with better features. And if I had to choose between a Yangwano and a Godox, I would definitely go with the Godox. But as much as Godox is doing some really cool stuff, I will tell you Interfit's doing some cooler stuff. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit later this year before you see a lot of this coming out. The thing that I took a lot of heat for. So Paul C. Buff people, please don't jump all over me. I'm about to speak fact and then opinion. I will label it accordingly. Okay? So you can debate the facts all you want, but they're facts. I defy you to prove me otherwise. And then we will talk about the opinion, right? So here's the thing. In the video that I did about changing from the Buff lights to the Interfit lights, I talked about the fact that it really concerned me that Paul C. Buff as a company wasn't innovating anymore, in part because their founder, Paul C. Buff, has passed away and he's no longer here. He was their founder, their chief engineer. In the time since he's passed away, what did they release? They released wireless remote control with sliders. Like, really? Sliders? I mean, maybe it's like camera design where you're going to go back to the whole tactile thing, Okay, cool. It's like retro camera design. But that's all they've released, guys. So, I don't see a whole lot of innovation happening. Now, a lot of people got all over me at that point, like, oh, it's like, that's blasphemy. You don't like Paul Buff, whatever. But hey, I stand by what I said because I spoke facts. Here are facts I can tell you about Internet. Now, some of them you're just going to, or Interfit, but some of them you're just going to have to take my word for a couple more months. But this will bear out, okay? The fact is that Interfit is being wickedly aggressive. Much more aggressive than I was aware of when I switched and made that video. Much more aggressive. In fact, I can tell you that their manager of product development is in China right now, working through some of the last minute pieces of some of the new products that are coming. They have got some awesome stuff coming out. So Andrew, you're asking about the Interfit S1. I saw somebody else ask a question about the S1 a little bit earlier. The S1s are great. I just don't need a strobe that big. I just don't. Like, for me, that's just, and remember, Interfit's wonderful to me. They're a sponsor. In fact, Interfit sent a whole studio worth of equipment to Chicago for me to use this weekend. Like, so that's awesome. I love Interfit, but for me, the S1's just way more strobe than I need. And I find, honestly, it's a lot like Pro Photos. I find that probably a third of the people that buy strobes that big never need strobes that big. They just don't. So if you legit have a need, then cool, it's a great strobe. I don't know of any upcoming changes that are going to happen with the S1. I do know that they're adding new transmitters, so there's still a couple camera brands like Olympus that you can't fire TTL with the S1 yet, but that's coming out, some of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't do them. In fact, Interfit even refers to me as their honey badger guy. Like, yeah, honey badgers, yeah, it's Joe. Go see him. Like, I have no interest in the S1s at all. Great flashes from everything I've heard, but I have no interest. So, Tonkazuba, the video that I did, how to shoot great portraits in bright sunlight without reflectors or strobes, which was actually about shooting in the shade, right? That's the rub. Have I done much in that arena lately? No. And yes, I will actually by the end of the summer. So if you're here in the East Coast, it's not going to help you this year. But I promise, folks, I would do more this summer. So actually, once I wrap up the modifier series, I will be doing some outdoor stuff. But I'm going to take a slightly different approach to it. So one of the things that I'm finding about people going outdoors to shoot is they're looking for some secret sauce. Like, what's the trick? Where's the magic? Instead of understanding that shooting outside is really not a whole lot different than shooting in the studio. It's really not. Light is light. Light reacts the same way outside as it does inside. Like, there's only one set of physics for light. So the approach that I want to take with these is really to try and kind of find the middle ground so that people can start thinking that, oh my God, it's two completely different things and I have to learn how to do this and then I have to learn how to do that. You don't really. Yes, there are some different parameters. It's no different than having two mathematical equations, one for indoor, one for outdoor. It's essentially the same equation, but the variables are different, right? Well, that's what we're dealing with. So that's going to be the approach that I'm going to take. Is I want to. One of the things that is becoming really, really, really apparent to me is that there are so many people teaching on the internet, on YouTube, all over the place. Good people that are excellent photographers, people that are very intelligent photographers, people that mean well and want to help. But as a group, we, me included, we're causing a problem. We're confusing the crap out of people. The video that I just released, my 6-month report card, about Olympus, I try to debunk some of the falsehoods that have been created about micro four thirds sensors and depth of field. The reason they're falsehoods is because, kind of just like what happens in the news, people take one piece of the information and they latch onto that, and that gets spread as if it's a rule, as opposed to understanding the whole piece of the information. And then you realize, oh, well, that statement that everybody repeats the fact that sensors, you guys hear when I have asked, tell me the 4 things that control depth of field, there's always at least 10 people that type in sensor size. Sensor size has no effect on depth of field. 0. None. That is a completely false, bogus, inaccurate statement. So what's happening is there's so much information out that is not getting articulated clearly. And, I am guilty of some of that too, right? I mean, the challenge is when you're teaching is to find a way to, bring things to a base where everyone can understand them. And obviously all that information that you do is only as good as the time and attention that people give to the information, right? So kind of a big part of what I want to do is really try and find some simpler, more basic ways to educate about some of these things and to be able to give people a simple common denominator for understanding. Because yes, once you have got your head wrapped around lighting and once you've got your head wrapped around the inverse square law, difference between shooting inside and outside is the nuances. There are nuanced differences that are going to be very valuable to you to understand from inside to outside. But the basics, it's exactly the same thing, okay? So, well, Patrick, you got 3 of the 4, but there's actually 4, okay? It's only ever taught as 3. Watch my video that I just posted, and I talk about all 4. There's a 4th way that you can actually control how you're using the depth of field in your scene. And it's a fact of science, it's physics. Some people hear me say it and they're like, what? No, but the fact is I can control it because I can change it. It's something that I can change. Okay. So yeah, watch the video and you'll get that information. All right. So Let's see here. Next up, Mike Osinski. What are my thoughts on rotating memory cards between photo shoots and replacing them after so many times or dates that you've owned them? I read those articles, Mike. I think that the best, and I know we're going to have some people weigh in here in the chat, and that's cool. We'll you'll be able to get some more opinions than mine on this one. I don't. I've never run into a problem. And even though I shoot tethered a lot, because somebody's going to say, well, yeah, you shoot tethered. What's the big deal? Even though I shoot tethered, there's always a memory card in my camera recording the same images. So the images are being saved in the camera, on it. And obviously, if I'm out on location or I'm taking pictures of the grandkids, whatever, I'm not shooting tethered then. So I've never worried about rotating cards and that kind of stuff. I won't reformat or delete the images off my cards until I know that I've got them backed up, twice. Okay, then I will do that. But in terms of the rotating thing, and then okay, this card is 2 years old, it's time to get rid of it. No. The only reason I dispose of cards, it's one of two things. One is just that the technology is advancing and the newer cards are faster. The newer cameras want faster cards. So I wound up disposing of a lot of cards when I started to get heavy into 4K video because the cards I was using couldn't support the write speeds that are needed for 4K video, right? So that was one reason why I got rid of a bunch of cards. Another reason is I do tend to be a little bit rough with cards, which kind of sucks. So every now and then, the little plastic prongs between the metal slats, I'll catch it on the camera and then it bends up. Well, if you take those and you wiggle them a little bit, it's almost like having a bad fingernail. You wiggle a little bit, it'll come off, right? And so you can do that a couple times, but then after a while, yeah, the sturdiness of the card case wears down. And then it starts to get sloppy to the point where I'm maybe a little bit concerned that it's just going to kind of come apart or get stuck in the camera. Then I'll get rid of a card for that reason. But that's a very rare thing. I think I've done that once in the last 3 years. Now I have two cards right now that are missing some of those prongs where I have just kind of pulled them off. But Patrick Ballard, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really appreciate it. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely... it's definitely a possibility, but I don't think you need to be that rigid or that structured about your process. However, full disclosure, there are a lot of people that would hear my system and say, dude, you're just courting disaster. So it really comes down to how comfortable are you with your system, I hate to use the word paranoid, so please, I'm not trying to insult anyone with paranoid, right? But some people they're more paranoid and more cautious, so they want that extra care. In all the years I've been shooting digital, I've never actually, compact flash or secure digital, I've never had a card fail on me in the camera. I've never lost images that way. So maybe it's knock on wood, I've been lucky, but yeah, I've never had a problem. So, what did I just see here? Liquid Devo 123. Please read my question about the D850 and the mirrorless. So, all right, I'm going to assume you typed that up here a little bit, Liquid Devo. So I will scroll up and see if I can find it. You may need to retype it for me because I'm not seeing it. Here it is. Oh, here it is. Okay, Liquid Devo 123. Joe, in terms of mirrorless, would you go for micro, 4/3, or full frame for landscape photography? I'm a Nikon fan and want to upgrade to the D850. But want to get one and be buying something, but don't want to get one and be buying something already obsolete. There's no way in hell I would go to the D850 for landscape. But let's be fair, right? Okay? Because seriously, gang, my goal, I joke about Sony all the time just because Sony people, they're like Apple fanboys, right? They get really worked up when people attack their Sony cameras. I don't want to attack any brands. It comes down to this, okay? For me, for my use, and I showed you examples of my work in that video. You can count the damn eyelashes in those images, and they're tack sharp. They're not blurry or fuzzy eyelashes, okay? 40 plus megapixels is actually pretty ridiculous. You just don't need that. Now, Liquid Devo, if your work is good enough that you're getting ready to open a couple galleries like Peter Lick does and makes 16-foot long prints, well then, yeah, consider that D850 because then it would actually really have value to you, right? You have to decide what do you really need for your images. And part of that, what do you need for your images? What is the end game? Where are your images going to go? I will say, and I hear people do this from time to time, they're like, well, if I buy the Nikon D850, I figure that even when that camera's 2 or 3 cameras old, it'll still be a good camera. Well, yeah, but that's like saying, hey, I want to buy a race car because maybe in 10 years I'll be a race driver, right? Like, I don't know. I don't see the benefits to that. I will tell you that some of the most popular genres of photographers that own Micro Four Thirds are landscape and nature photographers. So what's that tell you, right? Even if you go look through the Olympus Visionaries as an example, more of them do landscape and wildlife and outdoor stuff than people photography. So I think what you got to look at there, Liquid, is you've got to look at Jose. There, good. It's nice to know your name. So Jose, I think you got to look at price. What you can afford, because like I mentioned in my Olympus video today, I don't know if you watched it or not, but a lot of people kind of went after me when I did the switch because I mentioned the fact that the Olympus cameras are less expensive and Micro Four Thirds in general is less expensive than the Nikon stuff. And then they're like, yeah, but you bought all the high-end lenses for Olympus. Well, yeah, I did, because those high-end lenses have features that I wanted. But the irony of it is the high-end Olympus camera and the high-end lenses are still a ton less expensive than Nikon and Nikon lenses, or Sony and Sony lenses, right? So that's not brand bashing. That's just that's facts. That's the price tags. So, I'm a big believer in buy your cameras based on your needs, right? So again, if you go back and you watch the video, why did I switch to Olympus? It all starts with my needs. What are my needs, and does this camera fulfill my needs? And it does. Blindly, for years, I did what everybody does. So that's why I'm not making fun of people for doing it. I'm just trying to get people to think, at least make conscious decisions. But I blindly did, bigger is better. That's logical sense, right? That's kind of how we're wired. That's how we think. So I did the same thing. It's like, oh, God. And literally for me, this is not Nikon bashing. This is what I did. It's like, I've got the D800. Now they came out with the D810. Damn, I got to come up with another $3,000 times 2 because I got to have the biggest and the best. I did that every upgrade that Nikon had from the D1 on up. That was my MO. It's like, new camera. I got to come up with the money to buy those cameras. And I always needed 2, which is ridiculous. So, really it's, I guess what I would give you as the best advice, Jose, is if you live in a country, so if you're here in the US, you definitely can, but depending on where you are in the world, if you live, and actually you're saying here, you go to international art expos and you have a couple of galleries in the US and Europe to display and sell my art, they're usually printed on metal over 40 inches. Well, hey, 40 inches? That ain't nothing, man. Watch the Olympus video that I just posted. Olympus took one of my images, I showed the image in the video. They printed it 8 feet wide by 6 feet tall, and they displayed it on their trade show booth in Las Vegas. You could stand on the floor. It's up on the top of the booth. You could stand on the floor, and you could count the eyelashes from the floor. Tack sharp. So I would... Oh, you're in Miami, Jose. Then, yeah, man. So then the best answer for you, and I'll move on. Best answer for you is you've got to just rent both cameras. If you don't already own one of the two, rent them. You're going to rent them for a fraction of the price of buying them. And then that way you've got firsthand experience. Period. So that would be the best way to go. Okay? All right. Tech Luck with Sony would be upgrading every 6 months. Now that's not really fair to Sony. Come on, it's every 18 months. We all know that, right? Hey, Sony, no baloney. You got it. So, come on. I love Sony. I'm just kidding. You guys know I'm gonna go pal around with Manny this weekend, right? It's all good. Camera's a camera. So, what do we got next here? Tech Luck. This is a good one. Tech Luck asks, for relaxation, do I ever take a mile hike in the woods to take images of beautiful butterflies, caterpillars, or birds? Man, I am like a city boy, not into insects. And relaxation, let me just tell you this story. My wife has tried multiple times to get me to do like yoga or like Tai Chi. I think I managed to last about 3.5 minutes doing Tai Chi once, and it was like, please just put a gun to my head and put me out of my misery. Just please, I can't do this. I'm one of those people, I'll rest and relax when I'm done. Done. You know, it's just too much I want to do, too much I want to see. And don't get me wrong, I love what I'm doing. I love it. So that's the kind of thing, you know. For me, relaxing is experiencing things. It's doing something that I love and that I really like. My bad habit is, and it's a really bad habit, is sometimes I don't slow down and kind of enjoy the moment as much as I should. And so every now and then I kind of regret that after the fact. But yeah, no, I'm not a big one for kind of chilling. I wish I was. Like, I won't lie. It's just one of those things. Like, my mind's not wired that way. So, hey, Trevor, if you come to Montreal with your son, man, I'll bring my 300. So that's a 600. I'll put the 1.4 converter on it. So that's an 840. You bring your big lenses, and you got to take me out in the woods somewhere and shoot owls. Okay, we'll do that. I'm all over that plan. So, all right. Let's see here. Jean-Edward had another question. Any tips for dealing with people who excessively blink during portrait sessions? Toothpicks. No, I'm kidding. It happens sometimes, unfortunately. It's always a good idea to ask them some questions. So what I mean by that is sometimes, people will be blinking during portrait sessions because maybe your modeling lights are too bright and their eyes are sensitive to bright light. Other time, it's because they're trying to force their eyes open because they're afraid they're going to mess up your shot. But because they're forcing their eyes open, their eyes are drying out, which forces us to blink, especially if that person's a contact lens wearer. Even just asking them if they wear contact lenses, sometimes their eyes aren't moist, like they haven't put drops in that day. So I usually find it, number one, try to find the root cause. Is there something that's irritating their eyes? And then obviously try to solve that irritation. That would be the first thing. If it's a person that's literally just a big blinker and they do it as a habit and they blink all the time, then you kind of got to work with that. If it's really bad, if we're talking it's extreme, what you want to do is kind of get the person to relax, get them in their pose, and tell them to close their eyes. And let's say you want them to be happy. So you be the subjects, all right? The person sitting there, their eyes are closed. I'm going to say, okay, now listen, I just want you to think about something that makes you happy. I want you to relax. I'm going to give you a 3 count. And on 3, I want you to pop those eyes open, okay? And, basically I'm going to do the 1, 2, 3. They're going to pop their eyes open and they're going to look stoned. So I'm not going to take the picture as soon as they pop the eyes open, but they're going to pop the eyes open. And as soon as the eyes start to relax, boom, I'm going to take my shot. And I'll get it that way. That would be another thing that you could do. That little trick that I just told you is also what I'll do. I did that yesterday in a shoot. The young lady that I was photographing was wearing contact lenses, and we were using a fan, a pretty heavy fan, to blow her hair. So, I knew from experience going in that fan was going to dry her eyes out. It was going to cause her eyes to tear. That would be a problem. So, literally, right from the get-go, I would have her close her eyes, and I would keep talking the whole time. Like, once you tell your subject to close your eyes, don't get quiet, because then they're sitting there wondering, like, what's he going to do to me when my eyes are closed, right? So you got to keep talking. It's just a polite thing to do, because that way they can hear where you are, especially if it's like a young girl or something. If you get quiet, then she's wondering, like, is he, like, standing next to me or something? Like, what's going on, right? Keep talking. And then basically I will do the 1, 2, 3 count, have them pop their eyes open, and I'll catch the frame just after they do it. And you're going to get like 1 or 2 images tops before they need to close their eyes again. And that's okay. Things take a little bit longer, but as much as I like to shoot heavy, I am much more concerned with getting good, relaxed expressions with life in them. So every now and then, yeah, you can't shoot heavy. You just need to go ahead and make sure that you're getting that relaxed expression. That's going to be the way to do it. So Liquid Devo, Jose, thank you very much for the info. I got one more question about the website to use to send galleries to clients where they can choose the photos that they want. I've heard of some pages. Any advice? There's 3 that are like biggest and the best. So I would say check them all out. I'm pretty sure they all have like free trials. It's like 14-day or 30-day free trials. SmugMug is at the top of my list. The only reason I say they're at the top of my list is because I am most familiar with them. I've actually used them in the past. SmugMug would be one. Pixie Set is the other. Oh, help me, guys. I know you guys know it. I'm missing the third one. Who's the third big one? SmugMug for proofing. SmugMug. Oh, Zenfolio. There it is. Sorry, got it. Zenfolio. SmugMug, Zenfolio, and Pixie Set. Those are the 3 that you should check out. And the key to all of those, Jose, is obviously it's like, what exactly do you need to happen? Because all 3 of them probably offer way more features and services that you need. So you just want to make sure when you sign up and you kind of go to the paid version of it, that you're not paying for a plan that's much more than you need. Yep, you guys, Zenfolio, you got it, and that was right. Thank you. Okay. So, kind of compare them out, compare them side by side, see what you need, and go from there. But those are the three that you'll hear people talk about the most. They get the best ratings, etc. So, okay. All right. What else here? Jonas asked, have I tried the Godox Pro trigger? Not the X1, but the new one. He upgraded since it's not a whole lot more expensive for just the main reason that it's clearer and easier to see the settings. As he puts it, it's almost, in quotes, user-friendly. He was just wondering if I've tried it or moved over. Jonas, I have tried it. I did purchase a new one for the Olympus. I've been very happy with it. I would have been absolutely fine with the old one if they would have made one simple change. Okay. In fact, what I like about the old one is it's a little smaller and flatter, sits on top. But I agree, as everybody says, and literally everybody says, the new one, it's much more user-friendly. You can read everything on the top. That's cool. My only beef with the old one was that when you did the little dial to go from groups, it would skip like 3 groups back and forth. So, in order to get from group A to group B, you had to be like, oh, there it is, stop, right? You couldn't just go one click and you were in B, right? You would go one click and suddenly it's in like C or D. Like, what the heck is that? So, yeah, it was kind of just really, really weird in the way that it worked. If they would have solved that one problem so that one click was one letter, I would not have purchased the new one. Not because the new one's bad, it's just who needs it, right? But yeah, for the extra $20, I figured why not? So I bought one, and I use the new one when I'm shooting with the Godox. I only shoot with the Godox when I'm on location. That could change later this year, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, they're fine. So, Bernardo Bennett, on your previous video, you were very positive on your transition to Olympus. Any cons so far? So, it sounds like you might have just come in kind of in the middle of this. So, let me just paste this in here for you, Bernardo. I just released a video today, actually. It is my 6-month report card on my Olympus system using Olympus. And honestly, no BS, gang. There are no cons, but let me explain why there are no cons. To be fair, because when I say that there are no cons, there's always 2 or 3 people in a group like, yeah, he's a shill because Olympus paid him to go speak. He's not going to say anything bad. Look, it's a bunch of crap. The reason why there's no cons for me is because I did my research. I didn't buy my cameras because of some YouTube video. I didn't buy my cameras because, Tony Northrup or Jared Polin or Jason Lee or anybody said, oh my God, it's the best camera ever. You need to go buy this camera. I used the cameras. I rented them. As I explained to folks, because of what I do on YouTube, I did have a little extra luxury that some of you don't have. I reached out to Olympus and they were willing to let me also borrow a camera. This was after I had already rented one. So I actually used the cameras, and I, had really kind of put them through, and I was organized about it. I put them through a pace of, kind of my checklist and checked off all the points. What does the camera have to do for me? What do I need it to do, etc. So, no, there've been no cons. The camera has done everything that I expected it to do, based on my testing and my trials and my research with it. I've explained several times before, but you may or may not have heard the explanation, Bernardo. My switch to Olympus, it was about a 1.5-year process. In the end, when it finally happened, it seemed like it happened really quickly because that's the first I talked to people about it. But it started when I got the Panasonic GH5 or GH4 and then GH5 for doing video, right? That's what I was using to shoot video. And I just kind of got intrigued by the Micro Four Thirds. Now, I love the Panasonic cameras. They're great cameras. I'm not a big fan of the ergonomics. They're a little bit bigger and they're a little bit awkward. When it comes to stills, when you're doing video, you're not holding the camera that way. So it didn't matter at all. And I find the Panasonics to be more video-centric. But when the GH5 came, I decided, everybody's talking about how great this is with stills. I took it out literally the day that it arrived. I didn't have a lot on my schedule, so I literally unpacked the camera, put a disc in it, and went out to a park and just wandered around and took pictures for the afternoon. And was really very impressed with what it did. So then I kind of started, doing a little bit of reading and research on Micro Four Thirds just to see what people were saying were the cons and the pros and all that stuff. And everything kept coming back to Olympus at that point for stills. Everybody talked about Panasonic, etc. But so in that sense, it was like, okay, let's try a little bit more and see. Oh, so Patrick's one of those guys that doesn't believe me. No, there's no cons, man. Everything doesn't have cons. If it had, see, I think you and I, let's be fair. I think you and I are using a different definition of cons. All right. The bottom line is, for me, it's only a con if it was something that I didn't anticipate or was not aware of, and it has left me unable to do something or shorthanded in my capabilities. Then it's a con. Other than that, it's not a con. If I go into the system knowing and understanding the system and knowing and understanding what it's going to do and what it doesn't do, and it meets all my needs, then I don't see it as being a con, right? So I think we're just kind of, I don't think we're that far apart, Patrick. I don't really want to debate you. I just think that we're maybe using the definition differently, and that's okay. But I'm sorry to disappoint you. I literally, there are no cons. The cameras have performed. They have performed better than I anticipated. In the video that I just posted, I talk about the one thing that I kind of wish I would have known beforehand, and it was great, and that is that it's actually saved me a ton of time. It saved me a ton of time on retouching. I didn't realize how much additional time I was spending because of those bigger files and the more megapixels. So the great part of it is it's actually saved me a lot of time in the process. And that was kind of the one big surprise, because all the test shoots that I did, I opened them up, I did some pixel peeping, I checked out the files, everything was good, but I didn't actually retouch any images through to finish. They were all just test shots. They were just putting the camera through its paces. And so when I actually started shooting then, for real and doing retouching, I was like, I never considered the fact that this was going to actually save me like a boatload of time. So it was great. It really was. So I assure you, and believe me, I've got a long track record. Go through these TogChats, go through my videos. I am always straightforward with people when a company has done something nice for me or a company is supporting me. And I am always straightforward with people about things that I like, things that I don't like, what I see are bonuses, what I see are weaknesses, etc. But for me and my needs, there have been no cons. As I mentioned in the video, there's a couple things I talk about in the video that I released today that for people that are full frame shooters, if they have certain priorities, they're not going to want to look at a Micro Four Thirds because they're not. So you're not going to hear me saying, "Oh my God, yes, Micro Four Thirds, Olympus, the best thing ever. There's nothing else. Don't buy anything else." No, God, no. Okay. So it really, it's always going to depend on how you like to shoot. Even if you look at the comments in today's video, there are some people who felt the need to say, "Well, that doesn't work for me. There's this," and it's like, cool, it doesn't work for you. But the video was talking about what works for me, and if you read their reasonings are completely valid for them, but they're doing different stuff than what I do. So yeah, it's all good. Okay. So let's see here. It's like boxers are brief. Yeah. So, Daryl, Sony's the best at plans obsolescence. Well, yeah, and sincerely, I hope that Sony kind of slows down with that. Because I'm kind of a big believer in the idea that that's eventually going to catch up to them from a marketing and a sales perspective, and that hurts everybody. Fact of the matter is, Sony's making good cameras, like they really are. But whether they're going to talk about it or not, they're not. But we can certainly look at what they're doing, and we can kind of compare it to the Apple, MO or business model, and it's working wonderfully for them, and they're putting out a product that matches it. It deserves it, which is great. But indeed, I guess I'm kind of the old school business mentality that kind of obsolescence is eventually going to kind of, turn people off, or at least it's going to slow sales down. And we're even seeing it. We see that with Apple and the iPhones. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't feel sorry for Apple. They're making tons of money. But iPhone sales have slowed down. And, that's because you are reaching like a saturation point. So I think Sony runs that same risk. But hey, listen, this is a company with really brilliant people at the helm. They know more than I do. They're going to do fine. But yeah, I would hope that it doesn't become a straight up in your face planned obsolescence, habit in that sense. I'm hoping that we're going to get 2 or 3 years down the road and look back and say, no, it was just because the technology was getting better that much faster. So, time will tell, right? I honestly think, so here's the one thing where I will give Olympus big props. I would love to see Canon, Nikon, and Sony, and Fuji, and Pentax, and all these companies do what Olympus does. If you go look at the way Olympus does firmware upgrades, their firmware upgrades aren't bug fixes. Their firmware upgrades are like, hey, that camera that you have, we're going to make it a brand new camera with new features and new capabilities. Why? Because we can, and we're not going to charge you for it in the process. No other camera company does that. No other camera company does that. So, a lot of people are like, Olympus doesn't come out with cameras nearly as often as Nikon and Canon, and certainly not Sony. Yeah, that's because they basically give you free cameras in the meantime, right? Because a lot of the upgrades that are coming out in cameras, and, Sony's a great example of that. A lot of the upgrades that come out from one camera to the next are actually software upgrades. So they could build it into the previous camera if they wanted to, but instead they'd rather sell you a new camera. Olympus doesn't do that. So that is the one thing where I will give Olympus massive props, in that sense. So Danny Kettle, stay away from the angry photographer. I hate to tell you guys, Ken is a pussycat. He's a great guy. I don't agree with all the ways that Ken kind of approaches what he does. Let's be clear. But Ken's got a heart of gold. Okay, whether you like his approach or his presentation, obviously we can debate that forever. But I will defend Ken. He's got a heart of gold, and he means well. He really does. So let's see here. Darko just went with the Fuji, good, and the Samyang. Oh, fisheyes. Any funky things? I have not gotten to play with a fisheye in decades, and so Darko, I shouldn't have answered this question. I give you guys a hard time about gas all the time, right? Gear acquisition syndrome. The Olympus 8mm, that's at the top of my gas list. And straight up, it's totally gas. Like, I don't need it. I want it. I really want it. I think that, it's an awesome lens. Especially now with the software capabilities that Olympus has added to it to be able to basically take all of the distortion out and everything. It's amazing. But unfortunately, I have nothing exciting to report in terms of my experiences with fisheye. So, but that's definitely kind of like on my I really want it just because list. All right. Mark, when will Ken be your guest? It is going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. I because of the hardware problems I ran into with doing the guest feeds, because I want to be able to do them real time. I just decided to put everything off until after the Chicago trip this weekend. Because the good part of it is when I come back from Chicago, I don't have any traveling or any speaking. Well, I don't have any speaking engagements until the end of August. So I get a nice break in between to kind of get all that stuff set up and worked out a little bit better. So it's definitely going to happen. And the cool part is I have secured some really, really cool guests. And when I say cool guests, yes, some of them are people that you all know because, they're content creators and they're on YouTube and that kind of stuff. The ones that I'm talking about really cool, no offense to the YouTube folk. The ones I'm talking about are really cool are photographers that are actually famous photographers. Famous in a traditional sense, meaning they have had decades-long careers and are incredibly respected and incredibly well-known and have been in positions where they have done some amazing things in their career. So yeah, there's some cool stuff coming there. Okay. Ronaldo, you're an alone Olympus shooter and a mentorship program with the Sonarson. Okay. Everyone else shoots Sony. No one has ever commented on what I shoot, the quality of the images that come out of the OMD. Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing for them to complain about. The stuff that comes out of the OMDs are great. So, and again, at the end of the day, if you're working with a good camera, it's all about what you know how to do with the camera, period. The camera's not the one that's getting the job done. The camera just gives you, it's a tool, So, Langston Ball, amateur photographer here. Your skills related content is really great and the people side stuff has really been helpful. Oh, awesome, man. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. So, let's see here. Just, Darker, you're going to do some astrophotography stuff. Yeah. So, hey, I will tell you, Olympus's live composite feature, man, is like the bomb for astrophotography. So I get it. You're not, in a position to go dump your Sony just because of that. But you ought to do a little bit of research into it. The live composite stuff is amazing. Totally amazing. So, but still have fun with it. That lens and that setup will be, a lot of, or not your Sony, sorry, your Fuji. That lens and that setup will be a lot of fun for, for doing astro work. So, all right. Let's see. Going back up here, some questions. Life's beautiful. Joe, regarding street photography, how do you deal with people not wanting their photo taken, especially when they may not believe that it won't be posted anywhere. You respect them. I mean, honestly, I know that's not the answer you wanted. You just have to respect them. I don't think that, there's any value to, taking somebody's picture and saying, well, screw you, you don't want to use it, so, I'm going to do it anyway. There have been some very public scenarios where photographers have done that in the past, like street photography projects. They didn't get modern releases, and then they print them, and then they got sued. And then they went to court, and they wasted a ton of money. Sometimes they won. Many times they lost, right? I think that the bottom line in those kind of situations is, you've got to learn to be a good salesman, even for street photographer. Because here's the one thing, like some street photographers, they become street photographers so they don't have to interact with people. And they shoot with telephoto lenses all the time. That's not being a street photographer. That's being a sniper. That kind of street photography is boring, in my opinion. The street photography that I love, and we'll go back to, the likes of Ouija. And if you don't know who Ouija is, shame on you, okay? The street photography that I love makes you feel like you are interacting with your subject, not being a voyeur watching them from half a block away with a 500 millimeter lens, but interacting with them like you're standing right in front of them. As a photographer, that requires that you're going to interact with your subject, that you're going to converse with them and talk to them. And I find that, when you are willing to interact with people and build that relationship, even how short it may be, and it's very short, you can get people to do amazing things and agree to amazing things. So, but yeah, if people said they don't want it taken and they don't want it used, then I am of the belief that you need to respect that. Now, full disclosure, have I ever done the opposite? Oh, hell yes. As a photojournalist, as a newspaper photographer, photographing news events. People are like, no, don't take a picture. If it's a news event and they are present and involved, too bad. Totally different story. So some of you may think I'm evil for that, but I wanted to be completely honest, full disclosure. Yes, if I'm working as a photojournalist and it's an event, then that's a whole different ballgame. But in the case of street photography, like if I'm walking around the streets of New York or whatever, no, I'm, somebody doesn't want to be photographed, they don't want to be photographed. So, Jean Edward, have I heard about the Olympus Perspective Playground? Any chance you end up coming to Photokina? So, I would love to come to Photokina. I don't think it's going to happen. But, fingers crossed, okay? I know that the folks at Interfit are not listening tonight because they're in China, but I'm going to talk to them because I know they plan to be at Photokina. So, we'll see. As far as the Olympus Perspective Playground, I don't know what that is, so I'd love to know. Please share, okay? Let's see, Sato here. Your view is that the pros at the sports fields and racetracks have seen a decline in pay for their photos in recent years and can't financially justify switch to mirrorless even if they wanted to. Sato, I don't know that I completely agree with that, but I don't know that I completely, I don't know that I completely disagree with that. And all I mean is I don't doubt that you're correct in some cases. But I would definitely argue that you are not correct in kind of a blanket sense. I know a lot of photographers and a lot of genres that are making damn good money. But they are doing superior quality work. They work their asses off, and they're smart business people. 3 things that the overwhelming majority of people with cameras don't. Right? So, superior work. Work your ass off. Smart business people. Do a little self-reflection, folks. All of you. I'm not picking anybody here, right? So the fact of the matter is there are photographers out there making great money in every genre, even in the newspaper business. Now, are there as many making great money in the newspaper business today as there were 30 years ago? No, absolutely not. Okay? But yeah, there's still, Sato, the question's higher up. So is there another question? Let's see here. What was the question? Okay, sorry. In my opinion, the DSLR fanboys that try to defend DSLR's fading future with oh, I see. That's Sato. Okay, so I'm sorry. Sato, let me get the rest of your question here. My apologies. I completely missed it. It was 2 parts. Sato, what's your opinion on the DSLR fanboys that try to defend DSLR's fading future but the pros at the sports fields and the racetracks use DSLR's argument? I guess I don't have much of an opinion because I don't buy the argument. So I just, for me, I've heard people say that. totally heard people say that. So I'm with you. I think that's kind of one of those things when, you hear people say that, and I know this is going to upset some people. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm being honest, right? I think when people tend to argue that argument, Sato, really what they're doing is they're trying to justify what they have. I mean, let's face it, guys, and I don't want to start a brand fight here, but part of the reason why you hear so much debate, like Sony's better, Nikon's better, Canon's better, Olympus is better, all the debate is because the stuff is so damn expensive. Once somebody has spent all this money on their gear, they don't want to know that they don't have the best gear. They feel they've got the best gear. They want to feel that, hey, I was the smart one. I bought the best gear. So I'm a big believer that that's actually a lot of where those arguments come from. All of those arguments. It's because nobody wants to feel like there's something better. And the worst part of it is there isn't anything better. I frequently will joke about Pentax just because Pentax is always kind of the kicking boy. And for those of you that think I hate Pentax or have something against Pentax, it's a follow-up joke to a video that the photographer, very respected photographer, Joey Lawrence did. He did this rap song, okay, that he was kind of poking fun at Pentax. And ever since then, I don't know why, it just sticks in my head just to have a little fun with Pentax. That's all. But, I don't care what brand you have. If it's the right brand for you, if it hits all the check boxes like I talk about with my Olympus, then it's the best. I'm a Micro Four Thirds user, guys. Are there cameras that have more megapixels? Are there cameras that have more dynamic range? Are there cameras that have more this, more that, more that? Yeah, of course there are, right? But does that make them better? Nah. So, that's the thing. So I guess that's kind of how I look at it. Let's see here. Chaz, you agree on the event coverage if the person is there and gets in a shot? Too bad. Yeah, I mean, when it's a news event, a public kind of situation. Yeah. So, D-Mac, believe me, if I manage to, secure a trip to do Photokina, I am of the mentality that if I can at least cover some of my expenses to Photokina, I will go this year. I was targeting this year and hoping I could make it because it's, for those of you that don't know, this is going to be the last biannual Photokina. In other words, Photokina has only happened historically every 2 years. They are going annual starting next year, and it's also not going to be in the fall anymore, September. It's going to be, I believe, in March. So they're switching it up, big time. So yeah, I would like to try and make it, but I have a feeling it's going to be not a last minute, but fairly last minute. So Wayne March, is velour good for backdrops? I'm not familiar with the pan velour, but most velour will work great. Yeah, basically what you're looking for is a velour that doesn't crease easily. That's really what you're after. You want a velour that won't crease easily. That's kind of the key. So let's see here. Somebody asked me about Jean-Edward Calvino, with the new privacy law, street photography is a dilemma here in the EU. Yeah, and it's I think it's only a dilemma, Jean-Edward, in the sense that you've got to respect the privacy laws. If you are asking people permission and interacting with people, having relationships with people, etc., then I don't really see it being that big a deal. I've caught articles and mentions where photographers are doing a lot of whining about those privacy laws and how it impacts photography. So I do not want to pretend to be 100% on top of all the changes and all the details. I'm not a lawyer. I have only followed the GDPR as it, impacts me with my website. I had to update, my privacy policies because of my Tog swag store and all that kind of stuff. But definitely not an expert on it. But from what I've seen, if you're getting permission, it's not an issue in that regard. And even with those privacy laws in the EU, if it's news, that goes out the window, right? So it's not really a problem. But front range photography and drone. If people are in public, I thought we could take their photo without needing a release, since in public you have no expectation of privacy. But I do agree with still being nice. So front range, the way you've written the question, so we have to kind of mince words a little bit here, right? The way that you have made that statement, that is a 1,000% correct statement. If somebody's out in public, you can aim a camera at them and take a picture. There's nothing to stop you. Absolutely nothing. Now, let's take it a step further, though. The real question is, can you do anything with that picture? Technically, by law, you can't post that picture on Facebook. You can't post that picture on Instagram. You definitely cannot sell that picture. You definitely cannot publish that picture, because while you own the copyright to that picture and you have not invaded anyone's privacy because they are in a public place, they own their likeness. They own the copyright to their likeness. So without their express permission, you can't do anything with the picture. So your statement is correct, but your statement is only one half of the statement. Okay, the full statement. The other half is, so, even posting something on Facebook, understand that Facebook is a commercial entity. Facebook is a money-making entity. You may not be making money on Facebook, but Facebook makes money. Instagram makes money. So those are commercial entities. Copyright laws pretty much in every, release laws, all that kind of stuff, all the legalities around that in pretty much every country, it's the same deal. If the person hasn't given permission, you can't just run off and do, whatever you want. So, all right, here. So let's see. Scrolling back up, I know there's some more stuff. Let's see. Where are we at? Did I catch all those? All right, so it looks like I got all of those. So I got another couple over here. Steve Wilkin asked, how do I eliminate or minimize burnout or over-learning? Well, believe it or not, Steve, I think that, the burnout or over-learning, I have to be careful how I say this, right? Because I'm on YouTube asking people to watch my videos. It's a problem. I will not say her name, and I haven't said her name, so I will, maintain her privacy in that sense. But I have an intern right now who's a perfect example of this. She is intelligent. She is talented. She never picks up her damn camera. So how the hell is she going to learn? And then she'll come in and all excited tell me how she watched like 5 YouTube videos. As if that counts towards photography. It doesn't count. So the overlearning thing, I think the problem is that it's not overlearning. It's people are lazy. That's why I think people get burnt out and why they overlearn. And what I mean by that is they enjoy being entertained. And you have to be smart. There is a lot of phototainment on YouTube right now. A ton of it. And while I am friends with some of the people that do it, and I have a lot of respect for them, and I enjoy their company, I don't blame them for doing it, but it sucks that people aren't smart enough to understand the difference between real learning and phototainment. So I find what happens is people invest a ton of time watching video after video after video. And they're being entertained, but they're not learning. And the reason they're not learning is because they're not going and picking up their cameras and actually using them. And then what happens, and this is what happens with my intern. The act of picking up the camera, it becomes a big project. Like, I got to get my camera out. It's like, I don't feel like dragging out the camera and setting this up. And I hear that stuff all the time. And it's like, well, if that's how you feel, then maybe you need to be a little bit honest with yourself, and maybe you're actually just not passionate about photography. So for me, Steve, I've never felt burnt out about photography. I've never felt that I've over-learned. I'll get burned out because I create too much work for myself, but that's a much more general thing. That's a life thing. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I've got a project that's been in the wind for a couple of months now. I can't talk about it yet. I thought maybe I was going to know what was happening with it this week. I'm not going to know. In fact, at this point, I think it's going to be another 2 weeks before I know. It's been killing me. It's why I haven't gotten as many videos out as I used to do, all that kind of stuff. I just need it to be done. Like, one way or another, I need it to be done. And as soon as it's done, I'm taking about 4 days. And I don't care if I sit here at home and just cuddle with my dogs and watch television all day. But I need to kind of disconnect from my work. Not my cameras, not photography, just from my work. So in that sense, that's burnout. I'm going to go take a break. But as far as the photography goes, I think the biggest problem is with a lot of people is they burn themselves out or they overlearn, and simply because they're confusing real learning with entertainment. And so they're not, I guess the short version is they're not using their time wisely. That's kind of what it comes down to, right? So April, have I ever cut ties with clients over their political rhetoric and or personal beliefs? I'm worried that I will be guilty by association. April, that's a really good question. I only chuckled and hesitated because last week I apparently managed to really irritate a few people with my comments last week, which I stand by those comments. You can go back and watch them. But we were talking about a young photographer who was 16 years old and was trying to sort out some business things because this kid's actually a brilliant photographer and he's already making money as a photographer. He shot weddings already at 16 and they're good. And then another young man asked about, well, what do you do? Because we were talking about, well, what about people finding out that this kid's 16 years old? And then another young man asked about, well, what about when people, don't want to work with you or don't contact you because of the color of your skin? And so I gave what I still feel is a very good answer. I stand by my answer, but it apparently really rubbed some people the wrong way. And I guess I have to say, ultimately, if it rubbed people the wrong way, I'm really not that upset about losing those people because that means their beliefs are rather extreme. So the problem that you have here, April, is that in our current environment in the United States, and guys, I happen to know April's in the U.S., right? So in our current environment, we have, more political rhetoric than ever before. Because of social media, we have more people spouting their personal beliefs about anything, right? Whether it's politics, whether it's, I don't care, politics, race, sexual preferences, cats or dogs. We just have people spouting their beliefs all over the place. So, interestingly enough, all of these issues, political rhetoric, racism, sexual preference, all this stuff, it's been around forever, right? None of it's new, but yet because of social media, it's much more kind of top of mind. And then of course you add in the news and everything else, it's very much top of mind. It's like everywhere. Let's face it, you go into Facebook, what do you see? It's like people posting, I'm going through my timeline and anybody that's posting political stuff, I'm sorry, I like you, but I am unfriending you because I'm tired of seeing it, right? How many times a day do you see that? You see like all over the place, okay? So, I think, April, what you have to do is, number one, you have to remain above reproach. So Daniel made a comment here, which is actually a good part of my answer. Deliver value in the job you've been paid to do. The rest is noise. It is noise. What April's worried about, which is also legit, guys, and something that you should be considering, is perception. If you're doing work for this company, does that mean you're supporting them? If you're doing work for this company, does that mean that you have no values because you were going to take their money and they're doing something that's horrible, or evil or whatever, unpopular? I don't care, okay? So I think, April, first and foremost, as a business person, you have to do everything you can to remain above reproach. You have to do everything you can to provide a good service. You have to do everything you can to be a good human being. And as we have learned, folks, and as we are learning more and more and more, the definition of a good human being does vary from place to place, person to person. So we're not going to debate that. I'm just saying, okay? And at the end of the day, I kind of look at clients and getting along with clients and finding new clients a lot like relationships, dating, right? When I was younger, there were plenty of girls I thought were hot as all get out, but I couldn't get a date with them. I couldn't even get them to take a second look at me. Well, throughout my career, there's been a lot of clients I would have loved to have worked for, but they weren't going to talk to me, right? So it's kind of the same thing there. But I think, April, your concerns are how you approach it and maybe how you market around it. I hope that kind of helps. Okay. Troy, time to go fishing. No fishing for me, man. My son fishes, I don't. Front range, what caused the major style change? So actually, it's not the style change, it's going back to being me. So yes, if you go back to the old videos prior to 2 years ago, you will see a Joe that's 70 pounds heavier than this Joe. that dressed, pretty much boring because I was wearing like potato sack clothing, and all my videos were like really serious and intense. I was always one of those people growing up. I was obnoxiously lucky. I was one of those skinny people that could eat anything and never gain a pound. I was like ridiculously skinny, and I hit 40 and it's literally like somebody turned off my metabolism. Like poof, it just went away. And now, well, actually, it's just over 3 years ago. So it's when my son got married. I just weighed like crazy, and so finally it was. I guess almost 3 years ago now. Well, actually, it's just over 3 years ago. So it's when my son got married. I just reached kind of a breaking point. It's like, that's it. I got to stop. And I did it all the wrong way. So I'm not the person you want to ask about weight loss, because I lost all the weight. I lost 70 pounds in 4 months. Basically, really, really, really pissed off my gallbladder, and then had to have my gallbladder removed because I lost the weight too fast. But in hindsight, I'm glad I did it, and I've been very fortunate. I do go back and forth on the weight a little bit by about 10 or 12 pounds. Like right now, I'm up about 12 pounds more than where I'd like to be. And it's a little bit of stress. It's because I've been kind of pushing myself a little bit the last couple months down. And, so I've been able to manage it fairly well. So that's the story on that. So going on and worrying about it and that kind of stuff. But I'll be able to knock that 10 pounds off really easy once this. All right, gang. So look, one last time, new video. If you're interested, check it out. I will be in Chicago this weekend. For those of you that are here that are my patrons, remember we're not doing a Zoom chat this Friday because I will be in Chicago, but we'll pick up with everything next week. If you're a member of my Facebook group, the link is in the video below. I will be doing image reviews in the Facebook group tomorrow night. So I hope to see you guys there for that. In the meantime, gang, get out there and shoot. I'm showing you my pictures every week now. I need you to be taking pictures. So we've been here 92 or 3 minutes already. So you owe me double that if you're going to come back next week. So the bottom line is, I hope to see you next week. Whatever you do, remember these words. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go and pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.